I'm Richard Gearhart, an intellectual property attorney specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I work at Gearhart Law doing the marketing, and I have my own startup.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, the show that's all about small businesses, entrepreneurism, and the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Today, we have Joel Salomon, prosperity coach and founder of SaLaurMor. He's going to be talking with us about how to get more prosperity.
And then we have Shawn Watts with Corfix, who has made a project management system for construction, which is sorely needed. And he says he has some competitors, but his is much better. So find out why. And then Florenica Cirigliano, RedCoach, who has taken transportation in coaches and made it into a luxury experience. So, but she's only in a couple places, but if you're there and you need to take somebody to a wedding or something, perfect solution.
But before we get to our distinguished guests, we have IP in the news. And guess what IP in the news is all about tonight? Mickey Mouse is going off copyright. Not all the Mickey Mice.
Not all the Mickey Mice.
But just the first original Mickey Mouse. And so that's quite an event. That's such a fundamental part of Disney's character and image. To actually be losing that copyright, I think is kind of a big deal.
Right. And it lasted for 95 years. It would have lasted longer if they'd known who created it, but apparently that wasn't recorded because a copyright will last 95 years or 70 years after the death of whoever produced that content. So anyway, but can everybody use that original Mickey Mouse now? Like, can I make t-shirts and sell them with that original Mickey Mouse on it now?
Well, in theory, you could. And there are things that Disney is trying to do to sort of retain control over the original Mickey Mouse character. They're trying to perhaps file a trademark on it, which is a bit of a stretch. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it or not. Disney in the past has almost gotten special conditions for a lot of things because they're such an important institution in the United States, but it seems like it's going to be a stretch, and eventually they are going to lose protection for the mouse.
But the thing is, I don't think very many people would even recognize that as Mickey Mouse. And today, it's changed so much.
I can't tell you that, but anyway, it's time for Richard's Roundtable, and I would like to hear from our guests what they think about this issue, or if you have another question about intellectual property, happy to address that as well. So, Joel, welcome to the show, and please tell us your opinion on this dramatic and important development in the world of copyright.
Well, thank you, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate you guys. It's great to be here. For me, it sounds like it's a very minor issue. If it's just the original Steamboat Mickey, to me, it's a big to do about nothing. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I even ever saw, the Steamboat Mickey.
I think it was more like a stick figure kind of thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting a lot of publicity in the media. I guess there are a lot of people who are terrified.
No, I think Disney's paying people to talk about it.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Any publicity is good publicity. Shawn, welcome to the show. What do you have to think about this development?
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. And I think that, all things have a life cycle. And I think that, 95 years is quite a bit of time. So I think that there's obviously an opportunity to sort of release that and give other people opportunity to use it. My question would be around the different variations of Mickey Mouse, right? Like at which point, like that one there, the original one that we no longer even recognize today as expired, but, are all the other variations, were they patented under the same sort of umbrella? And are those expiring just at a later date? Like, what is the state of those?
No, that's a really great question. And like you've mentioned, Disney has changed Mickey Mouse over the years multiple times. And so each one of those individual creations is entitled to its own copyright. And so those copyrights will remain in force and in effect until either their 70-year term or their 95-year term expires. So Disney still has plenty of copyright protection around the mouse for sure. So great. Florencia, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts about this?
Thank you for having me as well. I kind of agree with what both of them just said, because I feel like the Mickey Mouse that is going to expire won't be very recognizable for like my kids. If I put the Mickey Mouse that we have today and the Mickey Mouse back then, they wouldn't get excited for that one. So I don't think it's gonna really affect Disney Corporation. And if, as you mentioned, it's not part of the umbrella, it's very individual, they can rebrand Mickey for the amount of time they need, so this won't affect them eventually.
Right.
That's a good point. Like they could change it a little bit, get a new copyright, then that lasts the length of the time of the person who did it plus 70 years. So they could just in perpetuity.
And another part of this is once the original Mickey does go off copyright, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are using it on t-shirts. And so, in other places. And so I think it's going to kind of almost create a revival of Mickey Mouse if a lot of people try to use the older version.
And that could really help the brand. You're right.
Yeah. So Kenya, what do you think?
Well, I just want to go on record and say I was the original creator of the original Mickey Mouse. I'm
In 1928. Good job.
If no one's here to take credit, I'll take credit. But all jokes aside, I agree with you, Richard, in terms of like the repurposing or reuse of the image. I mean, you think of Disney and there's certain like characters that create this nostalgia and these memories for people. And I could totally see Disney or somebody coming along and creating like this whole vintage like line of use for this character. So I would see why they would be concerned, because that would be my first thought, is how cool can we make this new vintage line of this old school Mickey?
So weren't we also saying that Donald Duck, the original Donald Duck, is going off copyright in a couple of years? And who was the other figure?
So Donald Duck and Pluto could lose his. And then I guess that Winnie the Pooh lost his. And so they made a Winnie the Pooh horror film called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Oh my God.
What? Yeah. Let's hope they don't do that with Mickey.
No.
Did they say anything about Minnie? Did she
No.
come along later?
She was later.
Okay. All right. So Minnie is safe for now. Well, that's an interesting story, and we'll certainly have to see what happens next.
Well, put Mickey back in the news again, because when I found this, when I was looking, I decided to look for other articles after I found the first one, and it was all over the place. So
this is hot property, folks.
yeah. So I am excited to hear from our guest.
I am too. His name is Joel Salomon, and he is a prosperity coach, and he's also the founder of SaLaurMor, like love, SaLaurMor. And thank you for joining us, Joel. We really are grateful to have you here. So tell us about how to get more prosperity.
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. And when people ask me first about what I'm most proud of, I'll say my daughters, Lauren and Morgan, and that's who my company was named after. So Lore for Lauren, More for Morgan, and SA for the first two letters of my last name. So SaLaurMor. So how do you get more prosperity into your life? Many different ways. I can give you 100, but maybe we'll start with one or two. The first is your mindset. So I teach people how to change your mindset about money from how I grew up, at least. We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. That's too expensive. You may have heard that growing up too.
Yeah,
I did.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
We had no money growing up. My mother would go to the grocery store with the list, and she would never come back with everything on the list. Right.
Right. And we had plastic. plastic seat covers on the living room furniture just because we didn't want it to wear out, right? So
well, we if you looked at the amount of income my parents made, we were upper middle class, and yet we lived the same way you guys lived, right? We lived in this poverty conscious way of living. And so and I was just talking to somebody yesterday about travel, because it's a huge passion of mine, and I've traveled to all 50 states and over 50 countries and 6 continents. But growing up, despite that upper income compensation, the big trips we took were to New Jersey from New York, to Wildwood.
what a thrill.
New Jersey, nice drives, beautiful. And we didn't know any different as kids growing up. We thought that was, an awesome beach vacation to go to the Jersey beaches, but that was our vacations. And so I teach people that you can live your life in poverty conscious all day long, and you can scrimp and worry about every single penny. Or you can think prosperous thoughts, right? And you can act as if what you want to happen has already happened. I teach acting as if. How can you act as if? Say you want to go to Egypt, which I did the last 5 years.
You walk like an Egyptian.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure I was an Egyptian in a prior life.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
I was too. We should talk about that sometime.
That.
Yes.
Oh, I had this dream. We'll talk again, Joel.
We will.
Okay.
We'll talk again.
I want
So
to
what
hear
did I
the story
do?
too.
So, but you can do this with any travel, with anything in your life. So what did I do? I put together a vision board, a board with pictures of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Sphinx, and other pictures of Egypt. I put that on my screensaver. So whenever my computer I wasn't working on the computer, that was in the background. And other things I did was I actually checked out the prices of flights. I checked out what the frequent flyer miles I needed to get to Egypt if I wanted to go business class for free. I checked out the hotels. I checked out the tours. So I was acting as if I was there, and I talked to people about it all the time. In fact, usually the background on Zoom was the Great Pyramid of Giza or the Sphinx whenever I recorded a video for many months. And in November of 2019, a woman I met told me she was going to Egypt in January of 2020. I'm like, oh my God, you're living my dream. And then she told me who she was going with, and she told me that she'd tell me all about it when she got back. She did. And in January of 2022, I went to Egypt.
So one of your techniques is and congratulations on that, by the way. And that really is, I think, a great way to focus your energy on things that you want. And I like the idea of a visioning board. What are some of the other techniques that you teach people for prosperity?
Yeah, so besides acting as if, affirmations. And there are proper ways to do affirmations and improper ways. So you can say, I am a money magnet in your head. Not very helpful. You could say it just as I said it, monotone, without any emotion. Or you could say, I, Joel Salomon, am a money magnet, with emotion out loud.
That sounds like a Tony Robbins technique, right? Yelling and screaming. I think that's great.
Well, I don't know the yelling and screaming, but just put some energy into it.
Put some intensity.
Vibration and frequency is important.
Uh-huh.
And the other two things that were really important with affirmations, and you're not going to hear this anywhere, is, do you believe it?
Right.
So if you say I am a money magnet, and then you have your ego saying that's BS, I just lost $10,000 last week in that stock investment, then don't say it. If on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is absolute faith and knowing and 1 is massive doubt, and let's talk about your business, right? If you have a dream for your business to generate $1 million in annual after-tax earnings each year, but every time, and you use that as an affirmation, But every time you say it, your ego is saying, there's no way that's happening. I haven't even got to 100,000. Well, start with the level that you absolutely believe in. And then once you get there, you can level up to the next level to 250 or 500 and then to $1 million. So 1 is belief and 2 is desire. So do you have a strong desire to generate at least $1 million in earnings for your business? Or is it like, yeah, that'd be fine. I guess so. What's your level of desire from 1 to 10? Do you have a burning desire, or it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter? So go for things in your life that you believe in, 7, 8, 9, or 10 on the 1 to 10 belief scale, and desire 7, 8, 9, or 10 on the desire scale. And I tell people to write down like dreams and desires first. Do an exercise and spend 5 or 10 minutes writing down everything you want in your life.
That sounds great.
And then cross off all the ones that you don't have a belief of 7, 8, 9, or 10, or desire 7, 8, 9, 10, because it's not happening.
So that sounds really good. Kenya, do you have any questions or comments for Joel?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to first off, can you give us the definition of prosperity? Because I think sometimes we think it's just about money, and I don't think we spend enough time like with the other things. I wanted to get your perspective there.
Yeah, no, prosperity and abundance can be for, and I use those terms similarly. It's having a lot of something, right? And it's not necessarily money. It could be health, right? It could be, sun, air. I mean, there's a huge amount of, like, we take for granted in our lives the abundance that are all around us in nature. And yet there's so much abundance here. And people will generally focus on the negative. We're programmed all day long to focus on the negative. So what about focusing on the prosperity and abundance that is all around you? So there's abundance of air, there's abundance of sun, there's an abundance of life. There's 8 billion people on this planet. That's a lot of abundance and prosperity.
Yeah, I remember once my sister said she was doing The Secret and the law of attraction and everything. And she said, just think about it. Look at how much grass there is. There's grass everywhere. Like, there is abundance there. You just have to figure out how to tap into it. And as you said, tap into what you really need in your life. Right. That's one of the things you teach. So maybe we have enough money. Well, nobody ever has enough money. I don't know. Maybe Bill Gates does. But so maybe what we really need is something else, like free time or, vacations or something. That's more abundance thing for us right now, I think.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, so we're talking about mindset a lot, but I don't want to avoid the point about taking action. So I want to give a quick story about when I started my hedge fund. So I was managing $700 million at Citi. I was laid off, and then I started my own hedge fund. And I went around to different insurance companies, different investors to raise the money. And I was all set. 2 companies had orally agreed to give me money. And then I moved into my office space on 54th and Madison Avenue. I felt like I'd arrived, looking out on Madison Avenue with this beautiful office and enough room for 8 people. I called up the investors and both of them backed out. They had orally agreed, but nothing in writing. So I could have given up. But I acted as if we already had the money. I still hired the analyst that I was going to hire. I started taking action, like meeting with my analyst every morning at 8:30 and talking about stocks. And I did something even more crazy. I put together a spreadsheet of all the stocks that we were invested in, quote unquote. And the stocks that were going to go up, we were betting that were going to go up. The other stocks we were betting in that were going to go down. And I calculated the amount of money we made each day as if we were invested, and then screamed at my analyst if we were losing money. Shawn, what did we do? We got to do better tomorrow. Or Shawn, great day, keep it up. Now, I didn't just do that. I did take a lot of action, but in 3 weeks later, after calling a number of different companies, I got a meeting with a great investor. And 6 weeks after that, we had the money in the accounts ready to invest. And I tell you, by acting as if we had the money, we got the money, but also by taking action. So it wasn't just sitting home and visualizing and acting as if, but I did bang the phones every single day and talk to everybody I knew, telling them my story and telling them that this was my dream and how could you help me?
Well, that's great, Joel. We love that story, and it's very inspiring. And I really like the way that you took action and acted as if. I think that definitely played a role in your success. We have to take a break now for a commercial, but we'll be right back with more Passage to Profit after this.
Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest today, Joel Salomon, who is a master prosperity coach. We've been talking to him about some of the steps you can take to change your mindset and bring more prosperity in whatever area of your life you need it in. But I wanted to talk to Joel because when I talked to him previously, he had told me about this major transformation he did on himself. And I thought it was pretty amazing. He could not stand up and speak in front of people a few years ago. And now he's just giving presentations all over the place. And he's really good. He's not reading from a script. He's doing it just talking. And so tell us how you did that, Joel.
Yeah, so just back up. 6 years ago, my biggest fear in life was public speaking. If you asked me to speak in front of more than 2 people, I'd say, just kill me. Just get it over with, because there's no way I want to do that. And it stemmed from 6th grade, being on stage at Umpqua Elementary School in Massapequa, Long Island. Yes, it was my 6th grade play. And when it came time for me to say my lines, I froze for what seemed like 30 minutes to me. Finally, they skipped over me. Thank God. And no one remembered those 20 seconds except for me for the next 40 years. So yeah, what's your biggest fear? So my biggest fear was public speaking, and what did I do to overcome it? Well, I was writing a book and I realized that I probably was going to do stuff like this, be on a radio show, be on a podcast and get interviewed. And I didn't want to do that. And I knew I had to overcome the fear. So I joined Toastmasters. Some of you may know Toastmasters. It's a very supportive place where you can give a speech and get feedback and improve quickly. So I joined Toastmasters in January 2017. And I remember giving my first speech, as I had done my whole career as a hedge fund manager and as a credit analyst and equity analyst. I got my piece of paper and I read what I was going to say. And the critique at the end was, Joel, at Toastmasters, we don't use note cards. I was like, what? That's how you give a speech. You read from a note card. So they said, no, try next time. So I had the immediate urgency with Toastmasters was I had my daughter's, Lauren's, bat mitzvah coming up on March 4th of 2017. And I didn't want to read from note cards. So I practiced that speech 100 times in my house and 3 times at Toastmasters and got a lot of great feedback. And one of my biggest proud moment in my life is March 4th, 2017, when I was able to speak at my daughter's bat mitzvah for 17 minutes in front of 200 people without note cards.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations on that. So
a lot of people have that same fear and some never overcome it. And as an entrepreneur in today's world, you better be able to put yourself out there, right? So I can follow your example. I find that
sorry to interrupt. I think the biggest lessons I learned was it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It only matters what you think. And so stop caring so much. You're talking to the person who is out there who you can help. And there's always, I don't like to say always and never, almost always one person in the crowd that you can help. So focus on that person as opposed to yourself.
Well, the other part of it too is if you say something stupid, which we never do on this show. Then
Well,
people don't
right. I
usually
don't
remember
say anything stupid
No,
ever.
you never make a mistake. Most people don't even remember it, right? It's like, I mean, I can't remember even the TV show I saw last night.
But it's
practically.
yeah, I had a similar experience, Joel, when I was in 8th grade. I played this trumpet solo in front of the school, and I dropped one note. I played Something by George Harrison, you know, Something in the Way, and it's like the whole song went right, but I like played one wrong note, and that stuck with me for years and years and years. And you know, by any stretch of the imagination, nobody probably even noticed, right? But I remembered it. And so congratulations on overcoming your fears. I could give you many more stories about
I think
similar incidents in my life. What?
The biggest lesson, I think, is to step into the fear. So what is your biggest fear? And step into it. You know, if you have a big fear of poverty, step into it, recognize it, and take some actions to overcome it, as opposed to just have it overcome you.
Well, and Joel, people don't have to do this on their own because you have a group, right? And people can subscribe to join your group. And you were telling me about it. It sounds really great. Can you explain that?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So it's called the Money Miracles Membership. And the idea is to take people from wherever they are right now towards financial freedom as quickly as possible. It's really mostly for struggling entrepreneurs who are not making, you know, what I believe they should be making. You know, I believe everyone has a purpose, and they should be doing that purpose and thriving, not surviving. So it's a 6-month membership, and we go through my second book, The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use. So we go through each of the 9 rules with the exercises. We go through 8 specific manifestation techniques. I have every single course that I've created over the last 6 years in the membership. So there's Get Comfortable Investing in Stocks 101. There's Get Comfortable Investing in Real Estate 101. There's Successfully Planning and Expanding Your Business. And then I've added guest experts this year, which I'm most proud of. So I talk to people, I say, hey, I have this membership, you know, it's all about money and manifesting and mindset. And they're like, oh, you know, I'm a business lender. Could I talk to your entrepreneurs about, you know, how they can tap into the equity in the business? Absolutely. So we have guest experts as well that have added content over the last 6 months. I included the whole Infinite Possibilities course with other guest experts. So I think it's really powerful. It's only $59 a month, the base price. And yeah, I just want to help more people become financially free as quickly as possible. I know the biggest thing holding them back is them. Yeah. And so if we can overcome those limiting beliefs, then, you know, the world's their oyster.
Kenya, do you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to a point you made about the ego earlier on in the conversation, because I felt that it was really resonating with me. What are some ways that you can reprogram the ego to prevent you from blocking yourself?
Are you ready? Stop, cancel, clear, get the F out of here.
I like it.
And you know what F stands for, right? F stands for fear.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever the ego is talking to you, use that. It's powerful. It's a powerful reframe. Andy Dooley taught it to me. Powerful reframe. Stop, cancel, clear, get that out of here. It works. And you got the ego talking to you all day long.
Yeah.
Well, I think self-talk, how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself is important. And I have to admit, earlier in my life, I was, you know, very critical of myself. If I made a mistake, I would get down on myself. Over time, I've learned that really just being nice to yourself, like you would be nice to a friend, is really half the battle. Because if and I ask myself, or I'll ask Elizabeth, and she'll say, well, if you were somebody else, how would you respond to what just happened? And I would say, well, I would say it's not that big a deal. I would say it's not the end of the world, and we all make mistakes or whatever. And, and so then forgive myself for those kinds of things. I think that's really important.
No, I completely agree, Richard. It's like we're our biggest critic. And, we take the place of our parents at some point in our lives, right? And our parents tend to be critical, at least mine were.
Yeah.
And then we take their places, and we're being very self-critical. So yeah, it's a great lesson to think about. If you were your best friend, how would you talk to you in that instance?
And what's so amazing is that everybody I've ever met, once I've gotten to know them, has stories where things have gone wrong or they didn't have the best environment. We were out with some friends this weekend, and I always thought that these were sort of perfect people.
They're
And
pretty close.
Yeah. And they are. But they told us some stories about some things that had happened to them. And I was like, really? That happened to you? And wow, that's amazing, because just, you wouldn't have expected that. And here I thought that these people really just had it made. And it's just like every time I get to know somebody at a deeper level, it turns out that they have faced challenges, sometimes amazing challenges, right?
Yeah, no, I think everyone has a journey that they're on, and no one goes, right to, massive success, right? There's different, I don't call them failures, but they're opportunities to learn along the way. And that's how they get to where they are.
Yeah.
So it's really important to recognize that no one just becomes a very, very rare overnight success. There's the journey to the success.
Yeah. And I remember, so Richard, he's gotten better, but he used to like to really beat himself up over mistakes that people made in the law firm. And we saw Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins said, I basically own companies worth $6 billion, and I have all these employees. I can guarantee you, as I stand up on this stage talking to you right now, that at least one of those employees is making a mistake. and as you grow your company and even your own mistakes, I mean, just people make mistakes. We're human, right? So that's a hard thing, I think, for a lot of people to overcome, is to quit beating themselves up about their mistakes.
Yeah. So Kenya, when you think of ego, what do you think of?
I think of, what do I think of when I think of ego? That's a great question. I think sometimes just the need to be perfect, or the perception of others and how they perceive you, comes from maybe an egotistical view. I don't know. I think the ego can be good and can be bad, right? I think it can be both. I think it can be bad if it's self-serving. I think it can be bad if it's you're always so self-critical of yourself. I also think that there's a piece of confidence, and I don't know if that comes from the ego, but I think you can use confidence in a good way, in a positive way. So I don't know. I feel I think of a lot of things when I think of the ego.
Oh, that's very interesting. Joel, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it's both positive and negative. It's you need the ego to protect you, in dire situations. But there's a lot of times when it's not serving you. And if you go deeper, I think of the ego as my head, and the soul is my heart. Right. And so when you focus more on a soul path, a heart-based path, I think you'll make better decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So we have to end our discussion here, unfortunately, and take another commercial break, but we'll be back with more Passage to Profit and Joel Salomon right after this. Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and we just had a really great discussion with Joel. I really enjoyed delving into the life of the mind, which, as you mentioned, is so important for an entrepreneur. Kenya, it's time for Power Move, and what do we have for Power Move today?
Well, speaking of entrepreneurs, we're going to talk about Kanye West on Power Move today. So Kanye is stepping it all the way up with his Yeezy brand. And he just partnered with his legal team to file a trademark for Yeezy SPLY. I think it means like Yeezy Supply for retail stores. So he basically is going to take what he's been doing in the fashion space and open up some brick and mortar stores, making his brand even bigger and better. So I wanted to give him Power Move for that today, because I feel like he's a creative genius and he just keeps finding ways to level up his brand and expand and take things to the next level.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how many people are going back to brick and mortar now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's after being isolated for a long time. People want to get out and they want to see and touch the things that they're buying. So
right.
And grab some Yeezys while they're at it, I guess, right?
I guess so.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. It's time for Fireside. Elizabeth, tell us about Fireside.
Well, so I'm not sure I can keep the name. We're going to try to fight for the trademark for that, but I've been thinking of other names. But what was exciting was I paid a website developer for discovery. So what discovery is we're planning out how the whole site's going to look and how the whole site's going to work. And so we had a meeting yesterday. We didn't get as far as we wanted because there were some changes, some things I thought we had discussed them and maybe we did, but we interpreted things differently. So anyway, we're making sure that we're both in total agreement on what this site should do and how each page and each functionality should work. And if you're doing a website with somebody, this discovery process is really important because, we've tried doing different websites for Gearhart Law. And I mean, this guy had everything written out. He had it flow charted. He had it in a program that does what they call wireframes, which is basically the outline of your website. So this is a step that you really have to take. You cannot skip this step. And I'm finding out exactly how valuable it is. We kind of did it with our other website people, but we trusted them more. But like, I am so involved in this website because nobody else knows how to do it except me. So anyway, I found it extremely useful. So when you do your website, if you can see the wireframe that your developer has put together and make comments on it, you really should do that.
Great advice. Yeah, I can see how planning out a website makes a lot of sense because you can lose a lot of time and your costs can go up if you haven't really thought it through.
Right. So now we are on to our first presenter. And Joel, you and Richard and I will interview Shawn. So Shawn Watts has Corfix, and I'm going to let him explain it. Welcome, Shawn.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I am the founder and CEO at Corfix, and we help construction companies streamline their job site documents. So a little bit about my background, sort of how we got here. So we are a tech startup. I couldn't wait to get out of high school and start working. Didn't love school. So the first job I took was actually selling software. I went to work in a, fancy shirt and tie every day, but ultimately I made no money and I was grinding it out and it was tough. And after a year I had I was in my young 20s and I had a friend say, "Hey, do you want to work with me in construction? I'll pay you $45 an hour." I said, "Sure. Like, I don't care, what you're doing. Let's do it." So, I showed up there for a summer job and that turned into a 10-year career as a unionized iron worker. During my time there was, I started off at the very, very bottom and sort of looked at, these young men who were leading these massive commercial scale projects. And I was like, how do they do that? How do I get there? Right. Before long, sort of super eager to learn, I became that person, was running a lot of the large scale projects in my city. And then sort of hit this ceiling in the unionized environment of like, okay, I'm no longer stimulated. The guy next to me makes the same amount as me and he's doing half the work. And it's just like, okay, now what? So The pivot for me was, fairly natural because it hit me in the face. So while working as a construction worker, managing, these large scale projects, I was being forced to document ferociously during the day. So whether that was, generally speaking, these were safety and compliance documents. So I saw a large shift in the industry, how regulations were being forced. And ultimately I was now back in school in a site trailer documenting all day. And I was like, what, this is not what I signed up for. So I identified several sort of inefficiencies as it came to paperwork and sort of administrative work in the construction sector in general. And with no prior knowledge to sort of how to do that, I went out and began to develop a product. So find people that, could help us develop this product, eventually go to market. I can resonate a lot with the things that Joel was saying. I'm very much fake it till you make it. I believed in where I am now before anybody else did. Everybody else thought I was crazy. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm crazy, but I'll just get up and keep doing it. Right. And then ultimately, the end goal is like where, ultimately I'm here now. So, that journey was interesting. Every day I'd go to work in parallel until I had a business, would work on my job and work on this second business on the side. Building a software product, very naively, I thought I'd take 30 grand, 3 months and build some product to change the world. 30 grand is a conversation with the company to sort of start planning things, right? So, the wireframes thing, I understand that very well as well. So, we spent about 2 years in developing our product. A lot of sort of hiccups along the way. Some of it me not understanding, the landscape and things that are to come. And, all of the challenges we went through were super helpful. And again, to Joel's point, a learning experience, right? Had a lot of sort of crappy things happen, but they made us stronger ultimately. The first company that was developing our product really fell short on us. They had promised us a delivery date where we could go back to our clients, and they couldn't make that date, and we had a whole bunch of clients fall off. So ultimately I was forced to fire them and got introduced to the person we ended up hiring internally, who's now our CTO. So, I look at things like that. If we wouldn't have had that terrible experience, I would have never met this other individual who ended up, changing the game for our company. So fast forward to where we are today, we have 22 full-time employees. We're selling to construction companies all over Canada and the US, and we're actively in the investment community, pitching for investments, and creating new partnerships and growing our company every single day.
Wow, what a fantastic story! And so yeah, so what have been some of your challenges? You mentioned the bad software designer, but what were some of the things early on that were challenges for you?
For sure. So, we got into we were selected to come into a software accelerator program, which really helped us. They talked to a whole bunch of companies and narrow it down. I went to pitch in front of a whole bunch of super wealthy people, billionaires, and, they selected our company. At that time, we were 4 full-time employees. And then we got into a program where they helped turn me into a CEO, sort of mold us into a company and help guide us. Well, in that process, it was all about scaling. So we entered the program 8 months ago at 4 full-time employees, and we're 22 today. So those present big challenges, right? When you're 4 employees, like we were basically a family, right? We all did multiple things, wore multiple hats. As we hired more people, that was no longer scalable, right? The CEO couldn't be doing these support calls, right? It's just not scalable for us to keep going. So sort of restructuring as on the fly, you're doubling your employee count month over month almost. And, your processes break. What worked for a 4-person company no longer works for an 8-person company. So constantly staying ahead of that and being nimble were some of the big challenges we had in the beginning. And, truthfully now the economy, right? So we just ran into a buzzsaw, right? As far as the economy is concerned, like we were in a very, very good position in the VC market, raising funds. And we basically had to pull out of that because overnight our valuation dropped, not because of anything our company was doing, but because of the the markets, right? So
are you based, Shawn, are you based in Canada or the US or both?
We're based in Canada, but we're, you know, very active in the US as well.
So is the Canadian economy having difficulty as well as the US?
For sure. I think, you know, the investment market in general is very, very tight right now. We're coming off of probably the frothiest investment markets ever. Companies were getting ridiculous valuations pre-money. It was not sustainable. Like, that market sort of burst, and the parameters to investments that these institutional firms look at, like, those lines shrink to this, right? So you really got to check every box. And we chose to, like, we could have raised money, but not at a valuation we would have been comfortable at. So we decided to, you know, make further sacrifices, continue to self-fund, until the markets get better. And honestly, in this game, it's very, very, very expensive. Like, to self-fund companies like this is very expensive.
So Joel, you've got to have something to say about this.
Yeah, no, you know, obviously raising money, you know, privately is dependent on indirectly on the public markets, and stock market's down, at least here in the US, 20% this year before yesterday. And, you know, we're in a bear market, and, you know, things have been very difficult for public companies, and that usually translates into difficult capital raising for private companies, private equity, VC as well. So yeah, that's completely understandable. I think probably one of the biggest benefits, and tell me if I'm wrong, Shawn, is when you're raising money, you know, the VC investor wants to see the numbers, right? They want to see a plan. They want to see, you know, your business plan. I think that, you know, looking at different scenarios, looking at the numbers is benefiting you most likely in better understanding your business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's just you know, our numbers are great, but those, you know, all these institutional investors sort of have this box that you need to fit in, you know, and you could be investable for this firm, but, you know, this firm doesn't invest in prop tech, for example. So those lines have just squeezed down to very, very minimal. You know, an investor told me the other day, you know, frankly, Shawn, I'm not looking to add more, you know, chickens to my coop. I'm looking to keep my current chickens warm, right? So these guys are bleeding in 50 different silos, right? If you and I are losing on our investments, the investors are losing everywhere. So I think that, you know, they also use it as a fear tactic to drive down and beat down your valuation. And we're standing tough, and we're like, no, you know, we're not going to accept that kind of deal, and we'll just keep pushing forward, because at the end of the day, it really comes down to revenue. Our revenue is great. We will have investment opportunities. So we're just going to wait till the markets get a little bit better.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Shawn. So where are you right now? Do you have a lot of customers using your software? Are you selling it to people, licenses to people to use it? Like, where's your company right now in terms of
Sure,
that?
yeah, so we're doing very well. So we have 130 construction companies under annual contracts with us today. So we manage a critical part of their business so they can focus on what they do, and that's building. These construction companies they're not equipped to handle this kind of workload, right? The owners and the top sort of managers at these construction companies were simply the best workers who have sort of graduated, you know, through the company, and not necessarily great people, hardworking people, but not necessarily the administrative skills to manage critical documentations, pass audits, and so forth. So we're seeing a little bit of change in the guard. That its construction companies are now hiring business people, accountants, to sort of be the general managers of these construction companies. Yeah, we're getting a lot of traction, and we're trying to continue that today.
So is your business then dependent on the amount of construction? Is it closely connected to that?
Yeah, so I mean, the VCs always like to chastise me when I use the words recession-proof, but we're about as close to as recession-proof as possible, right? So our, you know, who buys our product is the construction company, who then licenses down to their workers. You know, we saw it in COVID. Everything, the world stopped, but construction kept going, right? And it's so funny. My brothers work in the trades, and it was like essential workers only. Well, they're building Max Milks, right? Like, and these aren't essential, right? So it's just like they find all these loopholes. Bottom line, there's so much money in construction, it keeps going. That's not slowing down. So our product that we're selling is as close to recession proof as possible.
So how do you sell it? Do you go to trade shows where these construction companies are there, or do you approach each one separately?
Yeah, so a mix of both. We do trade shows, but typically we actively reach out. We have a cold calling department, if you will, who will reach out to these companies who we know and we've identified have a need for our product, and then we sort of give them the value proposition over the phone. Then we're able to book a Zoom demo with them, tear them through the product. They sign up, we give them a login, and there you go. So it's a really good scalable business, obviously, and that's why software as a service is so attractive. I can call in Australia, give a presentation, 30-minute presentation. They can give me their credit card number, and we can turn them on and manage them from here, right?
Interesting.
All right, well, that's great. So unfortunately, we've run out of time for this segment, but Shawn, it sounds like your company is just really doing well. And we obviously wish you all the success. Where can customers find out more about your product?
Yeah, so if you could visit our website, www.corfix.com. And you can also, we're really active on LinkedIn. So you can reach me, Shawn Watts, on LinkedIn, and we also have a LinkedIn page as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Shawn. So now we're on to our next presenter, Florencia Cirigliano. She has RedCoach. I might have butchered your name a little. I'm sorry. Got it perfect before the show, but but anyway, RedCoach is a really great idea, and she brings her knowledge of how these things work in Argentina, and she's introducing it to the States. Kind of. I'm going to let you explain what it is. So, welcome.
Well, thank you again for having me here today. So, RedCoach started back from an idea that we have from Argentina. This is a family business. We've been running luxury transportation in Argentina, or city buses as well, for 50 years. And we came to the States on vacation, and we saw that there were a lot of people driving from Miami to Orlando on that boring I-95 and Turnpike, going to Disney or to Tampa or anywhere in the state. And we thought, why are they not using like a bus option as we do in Argentina? We travel all over the country by bus, by motor coach actually. So the options here were other companies that have been established for many, many years, like Greyhound. And for people in America, bus travel has a specific mindset. It has a connotation, and it's related with kind of like the last option. If you are like if you watch a movie, you can see people or kids running away and getting on a Greyhound, or getting out of jail and getting on a Greyhound. So that's kind of like the mindset that when people think about bus travel. So what we thought is, why don't we change the way people think about bus travel and revolutionize the kind of the industry? Why being stuck behind the wheels of the bus of your car, and drive for 4 boring hours without being able to be productive, or going through TSA and all the hassle that it's has to do with going through an airport. Well, today at this time it's even worse, because with all the delays and the baggage and everything that's going on in that industry. So we thought it was going to be a good opportunity. But how do you get Americans out of their cars, the comfort of the cars, when you're used to, you're handling your time, you have your music, your AC, and everything is very comfortable. So we knew that it could be done with the bus as it's known. So what we did was we purchased the buses here, and we tailor-made them. So we removed all the seats. There are 56 seats. We brought leather reclining bed style seats from Argentina. So we customized the seats. We put the Wi-Fi, power outlets. Actually the seat could be kind of like a bed style, so you can sleep on the bus. And so people at the beginning were super reluctant about the idea, because again, it was hard for us to explain the concept, because when we would say 27 seats, they think it was a smaller vehicle. Then they thought it's going to be a charter bus. And this is a line run. You have daily departures every single day, as you can have on an airline. and you travel all over the state. Now we're in Texas as well. We started in Florida 12 years ago. So pretty much people we start growing actually was word of mouth. So when people get on the bus and they have a relative and they will tell the story, it happened to me many, many times when I was on the bus. I would hear someone else say that they are on the bus, and you can tell how the other person over the phone was like, what the hell are you doing on a bus? You know, you never are on the bus. So, no, but this is a different bus. This is not your typical bus. It's different. You have to try it. And that's how we kind of grew.
Sign me up for that, because I'll tell you, usually I'm the one who's driving, right? And my passengers get to relax and play with the buttons and change the radio a lot, you know. So I would really like to have my own radio station to listen to. But in any case, no, that sounds so it's kind
of like the private jet concept, only for buses.
Yeah.
Right. I mean the seats that recline so you can sleep. Like, what a great idea. Like, why haven't they done, like, why wasn't that being done 50 years ago? You know?
Yeah, sort of a first class bus.
Yeah, first class bus. There you go.
So do they serve any drinks or anything, or any food on the bus, or?
We do have some snacks and beverages in some routes in Texas, but not in general, because then you have, in Argentina, we got a coffee and stuff, but here it's like sometimes there are some liability issues, like some are going to burn. So we're trying to avoid all of that. And actually people like to, you know, get more substantial food sometimes. So they want to eat, and it gets things very complicated. So we just keep it more simple.
Okay.
But
can you bring your own stuff though? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can. The thing is, and what makes this another thing that makes us different, because that's another big selling point, it's okay, how long it's going to take? Because mindset about bus traveling is, okay, it's going to take me forever. We're going to get into every small little towns. And our concept is very much, you know, similar time that it would take you driving, because we do not stop in every single town and we go through the highway. So we have stops, pick up and drop off in service plazas like West Palm Beach, Fort Pierce. So, and we have a lot of stops in airports as well, which gives good connectivity for people trying to make connections. And one of the things that really help us with our business is, okay, we are targeting the middle class that like typically drives. Our customers are not people that would go to with another bus company. Ours, we are competing with the drivers, with people that get in their cars. So we're trying to get cars out of the road.
That sounds like a good plan. I mean, I feel like that's something I would have done. So I'm going to go to Hilton Head for a retreat, and the airfare was ridiculous. And so if I could have done this for like a quarter of the price, it would have been a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. I mean, how does pricing compare to other modes of transportation, you know, to airplane, train?
So that was one of the biggest thing. And back in 2011, when we were really struggling to get like this, to change this mindset and people actually to try, one of the things that helped us the most were when there was a big gas race, prices went from, I remember, this is like, it's very ancient, $2.30 in Florida. That's like another life. To I was like $3.20. Now it's $5. So people start looking for more options. So we always been very conscious about how much it will cost you to drive your own car versus getting on a RedCoach and flying. So we have dynamic prices as airlines do. So what we want to do with that is give people options to, if they book in advance, get a better rate, have promotional seats. So 300 miles trip from Miami to Orlando, it could be $25 up to $50 or $60. So that's kind of like the price point. And honestly, with the gas price today, you can say up to, it's cheaper than driving, and 2 times more, it's cheaper than also flying, because airfares today is crazy.
Right. So you have one bus that's carrying 27 people, right? And so the cost is more spread over all the passengers as
Yeah.
opposed to if you're driving yourself or
Right. So
flying.
And we
Florencia, I
also
have a question. I have a question for you, Florencia. So right now you're in Florida and Texas.
yes.
So can you drive between those states no, you can't. So are you going to try to get in all at least 48 contiguous states in the US and be able to go between states? Is that possible?
I wouldn't say all those states, but definitely there's a plan of having a network and kind of connect all the states, at least in this southern part of the country. But we believe that if people don't want to be 18 hours, 20 hours on a bus, even if it's the most comfortable one, there's a point that it makes more sense to fly than driving.
Okay.
So our business model is more like the 400, 500 at the most radios mileage, because then it gets, my price will have to go up and it wouldn't make sense to be on a bus that many hours.
So how do you determine which routes you're going to service? And how do you know, do you like compete directly with trains maybe, or but how do you know which routes that you're going to select?
Yeah, one of the things that we look into it at first is population, where's the people are concentrated. Also college universities are a big part of our business as well, because now parents, they don't have to drive their kids. They can feel safe on a RedCoach because we have like GPS tracking. You can know exactly where the bus is. You have cameras on board. So we have a monitoring system, like there's people watching the bus and the routes 24/7. So it gives a lot of peace of mind for parents. So college towns are important as well to see. Here in Florida, we do have a lot of universities and a lot of people that use that. But mostly we look at the concentration of the population. Big states, but people like what is Miami or Fort Lauderdale, or could be Dallas, Houston, Austin, those stuff. But there's a lot of opportunity as well in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Those states are very attractive as well.
So Florencia, how are you advertising this? Are you on social media, website? Obviously you have the website.
Yes, we do have a website, which is redcoachusa.com, and all our media, like social media handles, are at RedCoach USA. But honestly, the best way that we get that we get promoted is our customers. 65% is word of mouth. So actually people referring, that's one of the biggest one. Obviously in Texas, as we just started, we need a little more of people to try us, to recommend us more massively. But yeah, that's and we're
so how close are you to Amarillo? Because this plays in Amarillo, this show.
I'm not sure. We are in Austin, Dallas, Houston, College Station. So it's not that. I think that's 3 hours, but I'm not going to say something that I'm not sure. Sorry.
I don't know the geography of Texas either, so don't
sorry. But those are, you can put in a Google map.
So, it is interesting, though, that you do get a lot of word of mouth. And I would imagine that among college students, especially if they're all there's a lot of people going in the same direction, that would be a very effective
and mostly the university itself. We have been asked by many universities, we want your RedCoach service here because it's a good solution to the parents. So we are in all the biggest one, and they are like, okay, can you start servicing? And we start looking at the routes, and we plan, and we put services. So all
those college students need to sleep too. So
I was just going to ask, where do you find drivers who are willing to drive college students around? I can only imagine what happens on that bus sometimes.
They're not all students. We have a good mix. That's
great. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time for the segment, but thank you for joining us, Florencia. How can people find you again?
RedCoachUSA.com, or on social media, same RedCoach USA.
And can people book tickets right on your website?
Yes, they can book it on the website. It's very simple, and you can just go from there as an airline.
It sounds great. Well, you're listening to Passage to Profit, everyone, with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. It will be right back after this.
Welcome back, listeners. This is Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest today, Joel Salomon, Prosperity Coach. And we are to the point in our show where we do something a little fun and personal. We ask everybody the same question. So today's question is, of course, this is for entrepreneurs. What is the favorite thing that you have bought lately? So Joel, you're on.
Well, I just bought this new mic. Guys can't see it. It's a Blue Yeti, and it works really well. And people tell me my sound is much better. So that's the most recent purchase that works well.
Oh, that's a good purchase.
That's especially good purchase for a radio program. So thank you very much.
Shawn, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like super simple. I, got my son a basketball net for his birthday, and now we're out in the driveway playing basketball all the time. So it's been great. He's 9, he couldn't even get the ball to hit the rim, and now he can drain shots from anywhere, right? So it's just been pretty cool to have a quick thing that we can slip out of the kitchen, play 10 minutes of basketball in the driveway, and we're done.
That's really neat. So definitely a family-oriented gift.
Yeah. What about you, Florencia?
Well, I just bought a plane ticket. Someone in the travel industry, plane ticket. I'm going to Argentina. I'm going home for some vacations. So I'm excited about that.
Excellent.
Boy, oh boy. These my purchases are so minor. I can't even think. I mean, I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon, but it's like little junky stuff. So recently I got a new USB switch for my computer, which is, it's not nearly as dramatic as any of the other gifts, but I really need it, right? Because I've got so many different things to plug into my computer. I think I'm going to go with USB switch.
Okay. Well, for me, if you've been listening to this show, you know me. Anyway, we got a kitten, and I did have to buy it. I had to pay. It was through a shelter, so of course you have to pay, and then I had to pay a transport fee because it came up.
I
from
knew
Kentucky.
you were going to work the kitten thing into this program somehow.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had him a month now, and he started out just this little, much smaller and starving and half dead little thing, and now he has a nickname, the Devil, because he's always.
You didn't consult me on that.
He's always in everybody's business, and the other cats can't stand him. And
you got to name him and the nickname too.
Yeah, his name is Max.
At least we talked about his real name. And you didn't even consult me on the nickname.
I call him my little devil sometimes because he loves to cause trouble, but he's so much fun. I do it lovingly.
Right. Yes. Okay. So yeah, I knew the cat was probably, listeners, you're going to hear a cat story every show going forward for a long time. So
maybe not every show,
but many shows. So if you like cats, stay tuned, because
if you don't like cats, stay tuned, because then you can say how stupid it is. But anyway, let's move on. So it's time, we're getting towards the end, but I want to recap everybody's websites so that if you want to find them, you can. And if you missed the show or any part of the show, there were some really great companies on here, and Joel was amazing. Our podcast is out tomorrow on all your favorite podcast sites. You can see us on YouTube, and it's really worth taking a listen if you didn't hear what went on today. So we had Joel Salomon, Prosperity Coach, founder of SaLaurMor. So that's SaLaurMor. So it's first 2 letters of his last name and then part of his daughter's names, Lauren and Morgan. So SaLaurMor, and it's SaLaurMor.com. And he's got a group that can help you find more prosperity in your life and change your mindset. And it was pretty amazing talking to him.
Yeah. And prosperity, who can argue with prosperity? It's a great thing. So,
well, you know what? The days are going to go by, whether you try to find more prosperity or not. So why not do
why not
things
find
that
more
make
prosperity?
Right. And then we had Shawn Watts, Corfix.com, Corfix.com. And he is reaching out to construction companies to help them manage their paperwork and all the regulations and everything with his software program. And it's really important. I mean, you think about those buildings that collapsed in Florida, right?
Right.
And
you definitely need to get the safety stuff down.
Yeah, you need to have everything.
And
set.
I mean, he is a total unicorn too. I mean, rapid growth. I mean, that's just amazing. And we're very excited for him in his future. So,
and then we had Florenica Cirigliano with RedCoach. So kind of the private jet of bus travel. And she does it small and locally, a few hours ride, but really comfy coaches and kind of what everybody wants now. And so they don't have to take a plane, way less expensive than an Uber or a taxi or something like that. So it's redcoachusa.com.
Yeah. And it falls into the, why didn't somebody think of this sooner category? It's sort of like theaters when they had these like small hard seats, and they took the small hard seats of the bus and replaced them with big comfy chairs, right? That lean
recliners.
back,
You could sleep on the bus. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why
didn't somebody think? Well, they
somebody...
did in Argentina. They just she brought it here. So, but yeah, it's in Texas and Florida right now. So if you live in one of those states, you should look for redcoachusa.com and book your ticket online. It's as easy as that.
So we need to sign off now.
Any final words?
No, we didn't.
We didn't save time for final words.
We didn't save time for it. So we need to sign off right now. But we'll return to this station next week with another episode of Passage to Profit. Before we go, I'd like to thank the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, our producer, Alicia Morrissey, our program director, and Mark Wilson, our syndication manager. Our podcast can be found anywhere where you find podcasts. Just look for the Passage to Profit Show. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, while the information provided during this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without first checking with your legal professional. And that's it for now. We'll see you again next week.